as much as I like contradict myself and say that I can't pray with people on Sunday during communion because I don't know what to say, like the one thing I have been able to do is just tell myself, like, the more you put yourself in those positions, God is going to show you what he wants for you.
All right, we're back with another episode of Two Dudes, One God Pod. I'm Trey.
I'm Pat.
And we have Alpha Dad.
There it is.
Tyler Hartwig with us
What's
today. What's going on, Tyler?
Oh, man. Wrapping up Christmas.
Oh, man.
We put everything away today.
Bro, I bet that is wild at your house.
Yeah. Actually, it was very laid back this year.
Really?
So we didn't have to do, we chose not to do all the trips, all the different places. We did a couple, but still have one. My mom's coming into town tomorrow. So, but I think we set a record for how fast we got everything put up today.
Heck yeah, dude. Alpha Dad at work.
Right, yeah.
I bet you were laying out diagrams on how to do everything.
No, my wife, she had the burden of putting it all up like she normally does because nobody wants to. It comes down so much faster than it goes up.
Yeah, always, yeah.
I've got like a 12-foot Christmas tree that she has to stand on a ladder and decorate. And obviously, none of us are going to do it as well as she does. So
yeah,
that's her job.
Yeah.
So, but, yeah. Wrapping up Christmas, man. Just kind of slow time of the year. So
Tyler is somebody that goes to church with us, and he's also a career man. You want to talk a little bit about your work?
Now, currently, I am in roofing sales, like 9,000 other people probably in the East Texas area.
A lot of people.
I've been doing that for the last 5, almost 6 years now. So it's been great. Kind of always had a history in construction. My dad is in construction. He's a bricklayer on his own business for the last 40-some years,
Wow.
Still laying brick.
Laying bricks and laying...
He's still on the tools?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He runs his own company, but obviously he's 60-something now, so he's not quite doing what he was when he was 20, but like all of us. But, yeah, so I've always been in construction. I did framing for a while and all that, but went to school for a little bit trying to do construction, and I was a little bit older when I went to college, or when I tried to go back to college.
Yeah.
And so my route to do construction management kind of got derailed, and graduated with something else. But yeah, I've framed houses. I've worked for large manufacturing companies like the Ozarka bottled water facility up in Hawkins. I was there for 3-4 years, and I've worked oil field, and I've done floors for drilling rigs and a lot of different things. So
I thought you were talking about like floors.
Washing floors.
I mean, you do
Like
a lot of that. I think that's why. Oh no, I think you wash a lot of floors.
Yeah.
But no. So yeah, I'm in roofing, man. It's I jumped into sales. Like I never really thought that I would be in a sales job, and like having kids now, like if I had to tell them to try to get into something, it would probably be sales. Like it's just there's not a whole lot of cap, right? Doing the different things that I've done in the past, it's like it's always seems to be up to somebody else on like what you get paid, the hourly rate, all that kind of thing. And then with sales, it's kind of all up to you. You know what I mean? It's if you've got enough to survive for the month or the year, you can coast, or if you don't, it's you grind it out and try to find more work and that kind of thing. So it's just opened my eyes a whole lot to a whole different industry, a whole way of thinking, a different mentality, and I've enjoyed it a lot. It's been awesome. So
Sweet.
yeah.
So how many kids do you have?
I have 7 children that I claim.
Wow.
Yeah.
But they're not all like...
They're not all my blood children, I guess,
Yeah.
biologically.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I had 2 children in a previous marriage. I have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old from that relationship. And then my wife and I now, she had one son when we got together 10 years ago now. And so for a little bit there, it was the 3 of us, or the 3 of them and then us. So it was I thought that was all we were gonna have, she kind of fooled me with that a little bit. But and then probably, I guess it was 3 years or so into our relationship, we decided to have a son, or a child, and we had our son Morgan. And then a few years later, we had our youngest daughter, so that she's 3 now, so Nellie. And then I guess it was 4 months after Nellie was born, the 2 older girls that we have now, who are actually my biological cousins, they came to live with us. So both of their parents had passed away over the course of the last 10 plus years. Their dad was my uncle, my mom's brother, and he had passed away at the age of like 44. Yeah, back in, I think it was like 2012, something like that. And then their mom passed away 2021. I hope I'm getting my dates. 2020 maybe?
Was it 2020?
Something like that.
I feel like it was during like the COVID shutdown.
Yeah. That was part of the deal. I can't remember, honestly. I'm probably getting my dates wrong. They're probably going to listen to this and be like, you remember?
Yeah, 7's a lot of kids to keep up with, so they just need to remember they only have to keep up with themselves.
Don't ask me their birthdays, please.
I'm not a very good historian either. I mean, I'm in the insurance business, so I often sit across from people like you and go, and what's your second daughter's birthday? Right. And they go, let me text my wife.
Yeah,
exactly.
They don't know. Yeah, so, but yeah, I've got a house full of kids, man, and it is crazy.
And you're the only one on Android?
Yes.
In the whole family?
Wow. Yeah,
so
I knew you were going to go there.
You're dying on that hill, aren't you, buddy?
Yeah, I will forever. Well, yeah, for a while. I won't die on that hill, but yeah. Yeah, so I've got 7 kids from 18. I mean, they're all in a row right now, so it's 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 7, and 3. Wow. So.
Yeah, that might be the most impressive,
father
list
resume
of kids that you have to father at the same time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people with like 2, 4, 6, right, or 1, 3, 7.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of teenagers mixed in with. Like,
younger,
do you still have diapers? Y'all still buy diapers? Oh,
no.
So you're out of diapers.
Yeah. Thank God. Yeah. and that is a total thought that I've had. Like, I was a pro. I felt like I am a pro at raising, like, from the infant all the way until like teenage, preteen years, right? Like, I could do that with my eyes closed almost now, right?
Right.
Like, it's got to be so easy. The teenage years now, that's a whole different dynamic that I never really experienced, and I'm getting through it.
And you're learning it all at once too.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And y'all are girl heavy
too. Yeah. I mean, we're pretty even, but we're one extra on the girl side. So but
that counts for 2.
Yeah. Well, as far as teenagers go, we're even. So yeah.
Gotcha.
But and they probably count for 2 each. So really, we're totally lopsided.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, man, the raising kids is what I've kind of realized is probably my calling. I think it's partly because God knows that I need to stay busy raising kids.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll find my way into other things that I probably don't need to be doing. So,
yeah, definitely.
But yeah, it's chaos around, but it's great, man. I try to slow down and definitely reflect on, how blessed I am and the experiences of like taking in 2 other kids that weren't mine and adopting them, and that whole dynamic, and then the stepson that isn't mine biologically, but like our relationship, he and I's relationship is like phenomenal. He's my buddy. He's my hunting and fishing buddy.
Always, yeah.
We're always wrestling and playing. We're both ADHD bad, so like when we sync up bad on that, we drive Danny crazy. So yeah, it's pretty cool. But
well, they're all very well behaved. Like I always enjoy being around your kids. Like they're never like a, I like being around kids that are good.
Yeah.
Like there's some kids, like if I don't like the kids, it's probably because the raising something's going off there,
Yeah.
and I just want to like affirm y'all and say that y'all are doing a wonderful job
Yeah.
raising those kids.
Well, I appreciate it. So you have your moments where you're like, are we doing this right? And Danny and I look at each other like, what are we doing? Are we doing this right or what? And I think, your kids are definitely a reflection of the parents. You know what I mean? So that compliment kind of comes to me as like, hey, if that's how they reflect, then I must be doing something right. And me personally, that's a compliment to me. So I appreciate that very much, Pat.
Well, you haven't heard this. Nobody has yet. But we had Steck on
Yeah.
last Thursday, right? And somebody said something about tough love. And he said, you know what tough love is? He said, loving the kids no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, I think it was pretty profound, pretty beautiful, really, to think about. Because
Right.
I was probably pretty tough at times when I was a teenager.
Oh, yeah.
Or even elementary age. I was probably pretty tough to love sometimes.
Yeah, I think that may be part of where I am at now in my life, you know what I mean, and raising kids and all that. And, if you had asked me 20 years ago or in my late teens, early 20s, if I saw myself having a house full of kids and teaching youth group and children's ministry and all that, I'm like, man, you'd be lucky if I'm going to be around in 20 years.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean?
You and Danny y'all were up here with the kiddos for how many years?
4 or 5. Yeah, with the younger kids.
Recently.
Yeah, moved to the youth, teenage aged kids. So yeah, and yeah, I never thought that would be part of my life ever. And going back to what you were talking about being a difficult child, like I was very much that. Very, very much that.
I can relate.
I was the oldest of 4 kids. I have 2 sisters and 1 brother. We're all 14 months apart. Well, my youngest sister is not, but each one of us is 14. My brother and my other sister. So, my siblings and I always joke. They're like, they never really got in a whole lot of trouble, and the reason being is they saw what I did and they did the opposite. So yeah, they're like, hey, look at that guy. Don't do what he does, and you'll be okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
See, my dynamic was different. Like, my older siblings were all pretty good.
Yeah.
But then I just went nuts. I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was my little brother watched me get a lot of whoopings.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he would just kind of sit quietly in his room, And like my mom will tell you, I don't think he's ever been spanked a day in his life. Never
Really?
been spanking.
Yeah.
Like I took all of them for the team.
Yeah. Yeah. I was that, and my mom, she's a saint, and I tested everything that I could, and my dad was more of just like the disciplinarian kind of thing, and he kind of grew up in a same type of situation, but he grew up with 4 boys, and he was the oldest, so like when I kind of feel like, and we talk about it now, and I'm like, when I got in trouble, did you really care that much? You know what I mean? He's like, no, I did the same thing.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? He's like, but I knew I had to punish you. I had to discipline you.
I used to get so mad at my dad because I would think I was being really sneaky.
Yeah.
And, I'd ask Mom to do something, and Dad would hear, and he would go, no, he can't do that. And I'd be like, why? And Mom's like, well, he's just going over to John's house. Or, and Dad would be like, because they're going to be drinking. And I'm like, no, we're not. And I'm thinking, how does he know?
Because he did it. It's
so unfair.
Yeah, yeah. And I say the same thing to my kids now, and I'm very honest with them about it. I'm like, I'm not stupid. I know you think I'm old and bald and everything else, and I don't know what I'm talking about.
You are kind of bald.
Yeah, thanks.
That's why you wear a hat?
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm coming for you, bro.
Stress, man. The stress is killer. But yeah, I mean, it's I have always like never really known what my path was going to be. You know what I mean? Like I've jumped around, done a lot of different things. I've lived different places, not quite as many and as exotic as you, Pat. But I kind of jumped around for a little bit and fumbled around life for, a good while, trying to figure things out. And, I guess my outlook now is like, want to maybe help my kids, and then even the kids and the youth and that kind of thing, like help them navigate that a little bit better than maybe what I did. I think there is some strength in just experience, and having to live some of that out. But I don't think I ever really had a solid role model in my day to day. That my dad was great, and we have a great relationship. But he was a little more hardcore and just in the disciplinarian portion of stuff, and then maybe teaching life lessons wasn't always his forte. So hopefully,
13 to 22,
Right,
I didn't
yeah.
want to hear what my dad had to say.
Yeah, nothing.
But I definitely had other adult men,
Yeah.
that I would talk to. But
yeah. I had my grandfather, and he was the greatest man that ever walked the earth, in my opinion, other than Jesus.
Yeah.
But I didn't live around him growing up. And so he lived here in Texas, and I lived in Michigan growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he was just my favorite person, but I only saw him on, holidays and during the summertime and stuff like that. So there was a lot of time there where, I just experimented with life and trying to figure it out on my own. And, like I said, fumbled around for probably late high school all the way till I started having kids, and maybe a little bit into that, what I mean? And I still obviously don't have it all figured out, but yeah.
Definitely making good progress.
Yeah.
In it all.
Yeah.
I was kind of telling you earlier, a lot of people think that their calling is to be a pastor or a worship leader or, whatever, but sometimes your calling is just to be a father.
Right.
It's just to be a parent,
Yeah.
and to raise some kids that are prepared to serve in the kingdom. And I think it's in Psalms, it says that children are like a quiver of arrows to the parent, and that's something I think that y'all really have going is a quiver of arrows that's ready to go.
Right.
And it's pretty awesome seeing them serve and seeing them help, seeing them interact, and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. It's like I said, you don't always know you're doing it right, but
it's easy to know when it's wrong, though.
Yeah,
Hard to know
and
when
I'm
it's right.
Yeah,
If it's not right, if it's not right, you're like, that's not right.
yeah. And I think there is. I don't know if it's the words epidemic or pandemic or whatever of a lack of good father figures in a lot of adolescent boys' lives, and then children in general. And I didn't live that out very well up until my kids were probably after my first marriage, all the way probably a lot of that through that, and then up until recently when I, in the last probably 5, 6, 7 years, I don't think I was a great example all the time. I spent a lot of time revolving around Fridays and Saturdays and late nights and the bar and drinking and all that. And, I don't know what hit me. I think it might have been the Holy Spirit and God working in my life in ways that, I wasn't conscious enough to see, what I mean, or listening or looking for. But, I realize now, like, those actions, those things were not constructive for raising children that would have been, arrows that are pointed in the right direction.
Yeah.
So, I kind of had to come to Jesus moments like that there, and realize, like, if I want to be proud and be a proud man, and not in a negative way, but then I need to be the role model for my kids that I need to be, and obviously, I don't always get that right still, but I think my compass is pointed in the right direction is kind of how I like to tell the kids. You're never going to make the right decision all the time, but generally, where's your compass pointed? You know what I mean? I think now I've kind of gotten that figured out. There's definitely some times it points south when it should be pointing north or whatnot. But yeah, I think for the most part, it's pointed in the right direction. So
Were you raised in the church?
no, not at all.
Not at all?
Not really. I mean, the only church environment that I had was visiting my grandparents here in Tyler growing up, really. That was, Christmas, and it was small country Church of Christ, out here. I think, they had the number of people that were there. Yeah, attendance. You know what I mean? It'd be like 20.
Yeah.
It was awesome. But I didn't hear anything that was said. It was just like going.
Well, how'd you end up at a church?
So it's kind of a spin-off of that. I had gone off and on a little bit as a younger adult, trying to maybe figure it out. And then I guess how I really ended up in church consistently. So after my divorce and me running around for a couple of years and all that, Danny and I started dating, and then she grew up in the church, and Pentecostal, and kind of a whole different realm of the church, different than the Church of Christ example that I had grown up in.
Like 180 degrees.
Right, yeah. And so when we got together, she had that kind of a precursor to her life, and I didn't understand that, and nor did I find it like that important.
I mean, it probably wasn't even that attractive.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
what do you
definitely.
mean?
Yeah. I mean, the idea of like church to me growing up was like rules and regulation and restriction and no fun. Right.
Yeah.
And so that was not anything I wanted a part of, but I did start like trying to seek that out a little bit as almost a challenge for my wife. Like, she was like, hey, this is something that I find important. We need to start trying to figure this out. And I said, I don't even know where to start, But there was a guy that was part of one of the Church of Christ that my grandmother was going to, that was the youth pastor there. And I did have the foresight enough to like go meet with him. And so I met with him one night, and he talked to me about the Bible a little bit, and was like, do you believe in Jesus, and that he died for your sins, and that whole kind of spiel. I don't want to downgrade it, but at the time I was just kind of like, yeah, man, I mean, I do, but like there's a whole lot more to this, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, no, not really, And I mean, I was like, what? And like he was prepared to baptize me right there, right?
He was going to save a soul.
Right, yeah. And, and that did spark, like, and that didn't happen then that night, but it did spark, like, what? Like, how is that, right? Like, that's not what I thought. Like, I thought I had to, like, be cleansed, right? And, like, totally change my life, and have been doing that for X amount of time, whatever that is in my own mind at the time, before I could come to God. And but that did spark the interest in me to figure it out a little bit more.
How old were you then?
33, probably.
Ooh, that's a big year.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably somewhere in there. It was probably 7. I'm 41 now, so it's probably 7 or 8 years ago.
I mean, I think I was 33 when I started coming.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to figure my ass out.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just kind of flew by the seat of my pants for my whole life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just did whatever. There were really not a whole lot of rules and regulations to what I decided to do, and I probably lived a very selfish life up until that point. But then, so that sparked that interest in me, and then my wife and I started visiting churches. We kind of went around. We tried some Pentecostal churches around Tyler, and then even Church of Christ and Baptists, and we came to Wilderness when Wilderness was first starting. Some guys, Pete and Cody and some other guys. I didn't know Travis very well. I'd met him once through duck hunting and stuff.
Yeah.
And came to Wilderness in the beginning, but I'd always find a reason why I didn't like it. You know, like even the little bit of Church of Christ upbringing that I had or experience that I had, then when I would go to a Baptist church or something like that, or there's some other places in Tyler that have like full rock band, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, you can't do that in church. Like, what is this? You know what I mean? Like the guitar solo, that's not about God.
Yeah.
You know? And so, you know, we kind of battled that, you know, where it's like, I'm not comfortable at this place and you're not comfortable at this place and that kind of thing. And then we decided, all right, instead of hopping every weekend, right, instead of just trying one Sunday and then finding the reasons why you don't like it, and I don't think that was a fair evaluation. You know, it didn't really give anywhere a good chance, right? Because going into it, I was just like, I'm going to find every reason why I shouldn't be here, you know?
Yeah.
We decided, all right, instead of doing it weekend by weekend, we're going to do 1 month, right? We're going to do 4 weekends in each place or at a place, and then figure out how we feel then, right? And we started with Wilderness, and
Never left?
Yeah, pretty much. No, never left, yeah. You know, started coming consistently to Wilderness, and Wilderness was still young, and it was a lot of people, and it still is a lot of people, and has developed into, you know, my best friends. But I was enveloped by the relationships and the outlook of what being a Christian is, and it changed my thoughts, you know, completely, you know, and didn't, you know, just kind of changed my mind about having to be squeaky clean, you know, to come to God, you know, and I had never really heard that message before. And so Wilderness didn't have much of a children's ministry. It was more of like a babysitting class.
Yeah.
You know, they were, here's your coloring book and your bubbles, you know, try to
Please
be quiet.
don't break anything.
Right. Yeah. And at that, you know, at the old building, the children's room was just like a back closet that was attached to the main auditorium area. Yeah. And so, like, if the kids got crazy, everybody could hear. Everybody could hear them in the back. So Wilderness had moved into this building that we're in now, and had decided, like, we really need people to help with children's ministry. And having, at the time, 3 kids, you know, that I wanted to get involved, because I'm like, again, if I'm going to do this, I need to be a good example. Otherwise, I'm really not living it out, right? I'm not following through with what I'm saying. It's just smoke and mirrors kind of thing, you know, do good on Sundays and then show up at church, but then don't do anything else, you know? Yeah. And so we decided there was kind of a challenge from the guy that was running the youth ministry at the time, and it's like, hey, we need volunteers, and we need you to do it for a year. We don't need show up one Sunday and then not, and then kind of here and there. And Danny challenged me. She's always, that woman has always pushed me to continue to get better, and I'm blessed to have her. But she said, we need to do it, you know. And I'm like, I haven't ever even been baptized. Like, what do you mean? Like, how could I ever teach children?
Were you saved at that time, you think? I mean, did you ever get to the...
Yeah. So, but like she brought that up, and I'm like, I can't do that, right? And I talked to some people and thought about it and kind of just thought it over, and the overall perspective was like, what better way to learn about God than to help learn through that with other kids, right? With kids, because I basically had a childlike, beginning myself, really, and so we started doing that. There was no precursor. It was like, oh yeah, you have to be baptized to teach children's church at this church, right?
Did they at least get a background check on you?
Not at the time. No, I probably had they. I don't know. But so we started teaching children's church, and Travis had some really good series going on at that time. I mean, this was 2019, I guess, so it's not that long ago.
I was coming in some.
Yeah. And he had some really good series at the time, and man, it was just every Sunday, it was just hitting me to my core. You know what I mean? Like I'd come to church and like I couldn't control my emotions. I'm crying, and I'm not a dude like I am now. I cry about everything.
Yeah,
I feel like. I feel like I cry about everything. But I was just, I went up to him one day and I'm like, dude, what is happening to me? Like, why is, I almost can't keep coming because I can't keep myself straight. You know what I mean? Like, is this okay?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is weird.
What
man.
was Danny saying? Like, she seen you cry here in church? Was she like...
I think she had prayed so much for this to happen that she was just like, yeah, this is God, man.
Of course it's happening.
Yeah, of course. I've prayed so much for this. You know what I mean? Because we haven't got into a whole lot of the details of how our relationship was prior, and then, the things that I've done in early years. But I'd done a whole lot of stuff that I shouldn't have done, and was living a life that I shouldn't have lived. And that she was taking the full brunt of, you know what I mean? Running the streets till late at night, going to the bar, and didn't know when I was coming home and that kind of stuff. And the whole time she's at home, like, God's gonna fix it, and I'm like, yeah, sure.
I mean, I don't want to spread the mess, but the message is good, and if there's anything you do want to talk about, we can. But I think we could maybe just illustrate what was actually going on if you'll just answer after I say 281-330
8004.
Yeah. So
Mike Jones.
Yeah. Which, dude, like, I got to meet you after this very transformative journey,
right?
Like you're down the line. We're like on the way back from the Mike Tyson fight,
dude.
And all the words to Mike Jones and Devin the Dude songs.
Yeah.
And I was like blown away. I got home. I was like, Lexi.
Yeah.
My daughter. I'm like, Tyler Hartwig knows all the songs that I used to listen to when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And she's like, what do you mean? She's like, Swisher House? I was like, that.
Yeah.
I don't think you know all the words to like leftover salmon, fish, or string cheese incident though.
No, I don't. Although I know a lot of people that listen to a lot of that. Growing up in Michigan, there's a lot of that. But no, I moved to Tyler to go to college at TJC, and moved into the dorms and
got exposed to our culture.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
He immersed himself into the culture.
The Houston rap, Swisher House, chopped and screwed music was a whole new thing to me.
What was that, like 2004, 3?
I came to Tyler in 2002. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was big.
Oh yeah, it was huge, man. It was huge. Paul Wall, Chameleonaire.
I met Lil Flip at the Bank of America on South Broadway one night. My brother and I were driving around, and we saw a car with the like decals on it. It was like an Escalade or a Navigator or something, had decals on it. We pulled in, and they were like, "What up?"
Yeah. I loved rap. I mean, I started with the Beastie Boys and like. Yeah. I don't want to say P. Diddy now.
Not the diddler.
Back Biggie and Tupac and all that, man. Yeah. Like I started with that. I used to roll around with NWA Discman playing. Like, I did all of that, dude. And I went to like the most white preppy public school that you could have gone to, right?
We were the ones paying for the albums.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I had grown up, and that was my teenage and young adult life, was running around listening to rap music, staying out late, and doing a whole lot of stuff that I shouldn't be doing. You know what I mean?
Doing the stuff in the music,
right? Yeah, trying to live out those songs, and and being in college and being away from my parents and
new state, everything.
Right? I didn't know anybody. I came to Tyler and I didn't know a soul. The only people I knew were my grandparents, and they lived here.
Yeah.
So and I was on the football team at TJC, and so it was wild and crazy. So I don't know where we were going with that. But,
how'd you meet Danny?
the bar. Yep.
Oh,
yep.
okay.
Yeah. Danny
She was fishing and she caught you, and then she's like, "Now we got to get you cleaned up, and go to church."
Yeah. Yeah.
Fishers of men.
I don't think she ever thought that was going to happen, but yeah, she worked at one of the bars that I frequented quite a bit, and one of the guys that I don't know why he thought that I was a good guy for her to seek out, but he was like, "Yeah, you should talk to Tyler. You should go on a date with him. He's a good dude." And I was like, okay.
Okay.
What bar is this?
Rufus.
I knew it. I was thinking. I knew it.
Yeah. I paid me and Ryan, we paid the light bill and the water bill at Rufus for a long time.
I broke my knuckles on that punch-out machine or whatever.
Oh yeah. I did a lot there. Yeah, I've done a lot there. So, but yeah, I had seen Danny. She was a bartender around a lot of different places, and she worked at a Asian restaurant here, hibachi restaurant in Tyler. Mm-hmm. And I'd seen her then once or twice, but I wasn't really looking for a relationship at the time, and we started dating, and it was all fun and all that kind of thing. And then she had her kids, I had her son, and I had my kids, and then we dated for like 6 months, and then I was like, no, like I don't want to continue doing this. You know what I mean? Like I don't want a relationship. I'm never getting married again. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And so I broke up with her. Yeah, it wasn't good. I broke up with her, and
so you had another girl lined up?
No,
you didn't.
No,
you just like legit.
Yeah.
We're like, I just don't want a relationship.
Yeah,
but there wasn't anybody else on the horizon.
No, dude, no. I didn't want to be tied down. I had already done that. I didn't want to be tied down to nothing. I was working in the oil field at the time.
Oh yeah.
I was gone week on, week off, and I was like, man, I want to have free reign to do what I want and not have to
answer to anybody.
I lived a selfish life for a long time.
Where were you at? Odessa or?
I was actually in Victoria, South Texas.
Oh,
yeah. So I would get home. I think it was Tuesday to Tuesday. I went week on, week off, and so Tuesday 6:00 I'd get off tower and drive all the way home and try to get it home before the bar closed. And it was a solid 5-hour drive. So if I hit traffic, I'd be madder than hell because I couldn't get to the bar. But a lot of times and it was Tuesdays was like girls' night or something.
Ladies' night.
Ladies' night, I think. Night. Yeah. And so I'd show up at 11:30.
You didn't even have to be there while they were all sober. You just show up when they were already drunk.
Show up with a wad of cash, gotten paid, been at work, working 80 hours in a week, and I would spend $200 in 1 hour.
Yeah.
As soon as I got
you
home.
Get a drink, you get a drink, you get a drink.
Dude,
everybody gets drinks.
I was buying everybody shots, and
it's the oil field experience. I mean, it's in the culture.
Yeah. So, but we met and we dated, and then we broke up, and then I just kind of realized I was being a jerk. I was being selfish and not really. I was like, man, are you really expecting to be alone the rest of your life? Like, this is a good woman, she's good and she wants the best for you, and you're just trying to run away from all
How
that.
long did you date her before you knew? And I guess to dig a little deeper, when you split with her, is it because you knew?
I don't know if it's because I knew. I knew that it was getting serious. You know what I mean? Like, I knew that was bound to happen, right? You don't just like date forever,
Right.
you know? And so I definitely split because I didn't want that. I didn't want to be constrained. And I didn't know where I was going to go in life. You know, I had 2 kids, but I didn't know if I was going to keep my job here, go try to move, or who knows, you know?
Yeah.
But like, looking at Danny, man, like, she has always had a heart of gold for people, like, has always wanted the best for me in our relationship, and I treated her horribly. Like, you know, it's hard for me to like reflect back, because I'm like, I can't believe she stayed with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, she's probably gonna listen to this and be like, still question that sometimes. But you know, I was just a jerk, man. I was just a big jerk. I used her as a babysitter, you know, and still tried to live the life. And you know, and I used to tell her that, you know, I'd say, you know, she'd tell me, you know, you shouldn't be going to the bar when your kids are at home with me and all this stuff. And I'd just say, well, you met me in the bar. You know what I mean? like, what do you mean?
Golly.
You know, you met me there. Like,
What do you expect?
This is the person I am.
She was working.
Yeah, right. And I was like, you worked there, right? Like, and it was great because you worked there, and I got free drinks, and I got discounted drinks, and you know, if I walked up to the bar and there was 3 people all the way around it, I would get my drink first, you know. And I got free pool. She would give me the keys to the pool table. Like, it was just, I thought I was the man. You know what I mean?
Look how awesome I am.
Right. Yeah. I thought I was king, you know. But, you know, we had a lot of arguments and about that, you know, and I never could see past. I was like, this is just who I am, you know. I didn't have a whole lot of growth mindset at the time, you know, and didn't really until, you know, probably 5, 6, 7 years ago, you know.
And that was kind of when you started trying to figure out God stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So we'd gone to Wilderness, had started teaching children's church, and was just on fire with Christ, and Danny and I both ended up getting baptized here at Wilderness, you know,
cool.
as a
awesome.
34-year-old man or something like that, you know, 35. And, you know, and that was a weird battle that I had internally too, you know. It was hard, you know. There's a stigma, I guess, or people battle that internally about like being a grown man and getting in, you know, and doing that act in front of people, right? It's like, oh yeah, you know, you can't do it now, you know what I mean? You've screwed up enough, or you know, and it was just an internal battle that I had for a while, you know, and luckily I found this place, and you know, Danny pushed me, and she had been baptized as a kid, but also, you know, had done a lot of stuff too, and had not been living for God completely, and wanted to be renewed in that, you know. And so we both were baptized. I think it was actually coming up January 6th. I think I can still. That's a date I think I remember.
More important than your
That's
kids'
whenever.
birth.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
whenever I was baptized too.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Really?
January 6th.
No
yeah,
way.
Real talk. Yeah.
That's
My
wild.
birthday is January 7th.
Oh.
So,
Whoa, dude.
yeah. I mean, as far as a sign that you're following Jesus, you know, it could have been worse than being baptized, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's like the enemy, you know, that whispers in your ear, like,
Right.
hey, you're not worthy to do this.
Oh yeah.
But, like, you know, we could have to, like, cut off our pinky fingers or get branded. Or
Right.
There's a million. I branded a kid one time. He wanted 3 X's, like that movie, Triple X, on the
my
back of his
gosh.
shoulders.
Vin Diesel.
Dude, I just bent up some wire hanger,
No way.
put it on an iron, got it real hot.
Oh my gosh.
He screamed. Yeah. It smelled terrible.
I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to want a brand when I was a kid. I thought I was going to be a lot bigger and bulkier and all that.
I still want a brand. What you talking about?
Really?
I'm not even big and bulky. I still want a brand.
There was some
wire
like
coat hangers at home.
No.
there was like some strength and fitness dude I had as a coach at some point in time. I don't know if it was in high school or college. And dude was yoked, you know what I mean? And he had a big, huge Texas like T brand on his shoulder right there. And I was just like, dude, that's raw. Like that is awesome. You know what I mean? And
That dude is so cool.
of course, he was like 260, just yoked, you know, and I was never that. So I was like, it's not going to be as cool when my arms aren't, you know, that big.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you know, Travis baptized us both on a Sunday here in January a few years ago. And it's just looking back now, it seems like it was just yesterday, you know, but it's been a whirlwind, man. It's been awesome. It didn't, you know, everything doesn't, I think that was the other thing. It was just like, it's not an end, right? Like I kind of think, you know, we kind of lose track of that. And it's the beginning, like you said, you know, same thing with like marriage, right? Like when you get married, that's not the end. That's the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of us kind of look at it differently, look at the opposite way. And so it definitely didn't just like solve all of our problems and my problems and who I was, but it started bringing those things to light, you know, and it was like, hey man, you know, if you're going to do this, you probably shouldn't do that, you know, and, but also, you know, opened my eyes to like realizing that I also can't and don't have to be perfect, you know, to be a Christian and to have a relationship with Jesus and to love other people who are also trying to figure that out, you know, because I feel like there is some of that. Like I had some of that too, you know, where I was like, oh no, you can't be a Christian. You're still running around doing that stuff.
You're still dipping.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
listening to cuss words and
that's
rap
interesting
music, you know?
Because I feel like non-believers, they use hypocrisy a lot as an excuse,
right?
You know, or as like a, I don't know, like they're like, well, all the people that go to church are hypocrites, you know. But like everybody's a hypocrite,
right? Yeah. Yep.
Right? You know, so I don't know if, was I talking to you about this? I heard something. I was talking to somebody a week or two ago, and they basically said, you know, their wife really struggles with like, if God exists, then why do all these bad things happen to them?
Yeah.
And I told him, well,
I think I know who you're talking
about. If God doesn't exist, then whose fault are all the bad things? You know, they were like, God doesn't exist because all these bad things happen. And then I was just like, well, then whose fault are the bad things? The fault is people, right? Because we're sinners, period. Whether you believe or not, whether you believe the speed limit's 45 or not, if you're going 50, the cop's still going to pull you over and write you a ticket for it.
Right.
You know, like your belief doesn't matter there. But your belief does matter if you believe that Jesus died for your sins and rose from the grave, and you know what I mean?
Right.
But like even the demons believe in God. Like we're just fools if we're going to walk around and go, God doesn't exist because they're suffering. It's crazy. So having that in mind, when all this happened and y'all got baptized, you know, we're teaching, you know, kids church, was there a big change? Like, I know there was a big change. That's a stupid question. But, like, you know, before you were living selfishly. Now, do you pray with Danny? Does Danny pray with you? Do y'all pray for God's direction in your life? And has that changed the fruit that you've produced, do you think?
I will say we don't pray enough as a family. Yeah. And I think that's still stuff that we are growing in. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't change overnight. You know what I mean? You don't figure it all out like that and then start praying with your family every time you sit down to eat. You know what I mean? I think that's part of your growth in your relationship with Christ is he's going to show you that as an importance. And, hey, yeah, you're not staying out till 2 o'clock in the morning, you know, drinking and coming home drunk. But also you could start doing this and you'll continue to grow with me, right? So I think that's for me, that's part of the growth, and it slowly has grown, and there's been setbacks, and there's been,
Definitely.
and like I said earlier, I keep thinking, as long as my compass, as long as my direction is pointed at him, I'll continue to grow, and how I grow is not really up to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I can't, we always hear it's like set a plan and then see what happens, right? Like see what
Right.
God does, right?
Yeah.
And so I've kind of just set back and been like, God, show me, I think definitely in the bigger things, some of the bigger decisions in our life, when I quit the job that I was working for an engineering company here in Tyler doing procurement.
ETTO.
No, it was CB&I. Used to be Hal Baker.
Yeah, my dad used to work there.
Yeah, it's been around forever, and it was an office job, and it was a good, 9 to 5, sitting at a desk, and 401k and retirement, and all that stuff. But that's not me really, and I didn't know that. I'd grown up. My dad was always like, "Yeah, you get an office job. You don't want to be out here humping it." And in reality, it's probably what that was where I should have been, because I get stir crazy and I can't sit behind a desk and all that. But when I made the decision to leave that job and get into sales, which was a complete commission based, no salary, no security, no nothing. With 4 kids at the time, that was a big, huge jump, right? Big, scary thing to leave a job that you can basically show up to every day and draw a paycheck, right? To doing that, and so those definitely for us, like some of those bigger decisions, changing houses, buying houses, when we moved, some of those bigger things, those are definitely things that we've, and even some of the smaller things too, and like I said, I think that just continually grows in your life as a Christian, as long as you're seeking that, the more involvement you ask for and the more involvement you seek, the more direction you'll have, right? So I think that's a logical explanation. But right.
Speaking of the houses deal, when Michelle and I, moved in together, we had a weird conversation. I was like, on Sundays we go to church, and she goes, "No, on Sundays I clean the house." And I was like, "You can do whatever you want after we get back from church."
Yeah.
And we were long distance, and so it was real quiet. When she finally moved in with me, the week later, my daughter showed up and was like, "I'm scared to go home," and told me some things that weren't real easy for a father to hear.
Yeah.
And Michelle was like, "We got to get a bigger house." We were living in like a, 2 1.5, with a carport, like 1,000 square feet. And we had, now 2 kids, and one of them being a teenage girl.
Yeah.
And so we had moved Sebastian into the laundry room and bought a stack kit to stack our washer and dryer. And he was just like, "This room's awesome." I'm like, "Thank God."
It's like a clubhouse.
And so she convinced me to look at some houses.
Yeah.
So we went and looked, and we made a couple of if we get this offer, we won offers, and got told no. And my daughter found a house that looked pretty good. And we went and looked at it, and my wife liked it. And I said, "We got to pray about this." And I could tell that she was kind of, we were going to Wilderness, but I could tell she was kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
And so I prayed almost verbatim this, and she'll probably correct me one day if we ever get her on the podcast. But I was like, "God, this house looks really good. If it's what you want for us, that's great. Like, make it easy and just make a way for it to happen.
Right.
But if it's not the house for us, hit it with a tornado and just level it. Amen. In Jesus' name." And 2 days later, a tornado touched down by ETMC, or whatever the hospital's called now, UT or whatever.
Yeah.
And it started coming towards the house we were living in at the time, and it didn't hit our house, but the laundry room, aka Sebastian's room, flooded 3 inches of water.
It's like, get out of there.
And I was
This isn't so fun.
Yeah, and I was like, "Whoa," And Michelle's like, I mean, it was wild, dude. We had to take the furniture out, and she worked at a restoration company or something in college, so we got some fans, and we weren't going to pay somebody, right? So we figured it out. A couple days later, I'm at the Masonic Lodge, and I had prayed about it. I said, "Okay, God, I got your answer." Well, we got told no. They got a cash offer on the house. So I'm at the Masonic Lodge, and the realtor texts me and goes, "Hey, the cash offer had a family emergency, moved back to Michigan or wherever they were from. And do you still want the house?" And I was like, I'd already accepted that it wasn't happening, So I called Michelle, and she goes, "Yeah, tell her yeah." So I told her yes. And numbers-wise, it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we just had an awesome loan person or what. I don't know. We had to write several letters of explanation. We were like, "Hey, this is why nothing makes sense." And they were like, "Oh, okay, you're approved." And I was like, "What?" So we got the house, and that's how we got here. But there's been countless examples of that. When we had Paul Roberts on, he said that every marriage that comes to him and Melanie for marriage counseling that's like on the verge of divorce, they're already talking about divorce, 100% of those couples, the man does not pray with his wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
How blessed are we to be around a group of guys that... I mean,
Right.
we meet. You come on Wednesday mornings. You come sometimes on Wednesday. And like we sat down and talked about some of this stuff at length.
Yeah.
And the answer's never, "Well, good luck."
Right.
It's like, "Hey, let's pray about it. Let's pray about it now." Like we're not going to wait. And you should pray when you get home.
Right.
Like that is the. I mean, that's what Travis does. I feel like on Sundays, he points to God. I don't know if you saw that post on Facebook about wilderness. Some guy had visited.
Oh yeah.
That was strong.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was pretty accurate appraisal of what's going on here.
Right. And so this past Sunday service, Danny and I were up there, praying with people that were taking communion. And, like I've been a Christian for the last 5-6 years, but there's still growth to be had. Right. Mm-hmm. And part of that is that, right, is continually trying to bring God into my life at home with my kids, my wife, and then being comfortable having those conversations with people that you meet. And so when we were tasked with like praying with people for communion, I was like, dude, I can't do that. It's just it's always that, at least for me, and I'm usually not a negative person on myself, but like, again, I'm like,
I'm coming before the God of the universe, and y'all expect me to be the guy.
I'm like, what am I going to say? I'm going to say something wrong. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of that, and that's probably a stigma that I have just growing up, and still sticks with me a little bit. But yeah, I feel like I don't always know what I'm going to say or what to say. And like, for me personally, like, I feel like I have a great relationship with God because I do more like just the everyday talking. Right, like the talking kind of stuff, but I don't know how to like transfer that from my personal experience always to my kids or my wife, or because I'm like, well, was that the right thing to pray for? Yeah. Was that what they wanted me to pray for?
Is that what God wants me to pray for?
Is that what she was thinking we should pray for?
Yeah,
because she was probably thinking we need to pray for this.
We really need to be on the same page,
or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, going back to what I kind of feel like has developed to be my calling, but like I don't have that problem sometimes with praying with these kids at youth group.
Yeah.
Well, you have some of the what's next in your life. You already know what lies ahead for the kids, and you know that the kids don't accurately probably see what's next around the corner. They see what's right now.
Right.
And they think that they have, dude, I thought I knew everything when I was 18,
Dude, I thought I was like full grown, had the world in my hand. Yeah. Like I had it figured out.
If people would only act right, then everything would be okay.
Right.
It was never me. It was always somebody else. They messed it up. Everything, I had it all figured out exactly how it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
They messed it up. It wasn't so much that I was playing God. It's that I thought that I could choreograph everybody else.
Yeah.
Have you read Wild at Heart?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you read Love and Respect?
No.
Dude, this February, Valentine's week, Friday night and Saturday day. They're having a Love and Respect workshop that Paul and Melanie are going to put on at Crossbrand. And it was the highest level thing I've ever been. I mean, I've been in counseling. As a counselor, I've been, a client. I've been in marriage counseling. This is the highest level deal I've ever done in a relationship.
Yeah.
Michelle and I loved it. Like, we went and she was like, ha ha ha. They're like, why don't you pray? She's like, I can't,
Yeah, right.
But it's awesome. And like, if you go, I think he's going to go. And
check that out.
is Casey going? Casey, yeah, I think Casey and his wife are probably going to go. Anyway, and then Colby. I think Colby's going to go too,
Yeah.
But maybe Michelle and I will go. But it was awesome.
Yeah.
I sent the book to somebody today and yesterday. I'm always like sending the Audible link to it because it's like, it wasn't new information, but it was arranged in a way that I was like, oh,
Yeah.
and like so many things that I've like accomplished or learned or experienced in the last 2 or 3 years. I'm like, feel like I knew this already,
Yeah.
but I wasn't acting like I did. Maybe I had it in my head, but I
Right.
hadn't figured out the practical application of it.
Yeah.
By the way, thanks for coming, and thanks to Danny and the kids for like letting me
yeah.
not be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To your point about like hearing things in a different way, right? I think that's kind of what happened to me, and coming to Wilderness was the message isn't different, really.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just somebody else said it in a way that it clicked, that fit me at the time where I was. And I've kind of seen that, I listened to a lot of, like I said, I didn't grow up with like much of a growth mindset. I wasn't always, I just kind of thought life happened.
Yeah.
I didn't have a whole lot of idea of like I controlled the whole lot, right? It was just like the cards are going to fall how they may, and I can't really influence that. I get this job, I do this, things happen, right?
Things happen to you.
Right. Yeah. And, I didn't, and it was kind of at the same time that I came to God that I realized like, no, like there is a lot more there. You can control your actions do, change the outcome of what you're experiencing in your life. Right. Mm-hmm. If you don't want your kids to, go through a whole lot of issues with drugs and alcohol and things like that, then maybe you shouldn't be that example in their life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's logical now looking back at it, but like I wasn't thinking about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I was just like, well, if they're gonna, smoke and drink and all that, it's just gonna happen. Right.
Yeah,
But,
right.
Looking back at it now, I'm like, no, if I had continued and, running out and being gone and smoking and drinking and partying and doing all that kind of stuff, then odds are they're going to do the same thing, and so now if like I want my kids to take life by the horns and get into a job where they're making money well and early in life and all that, then I need to coach and teach them that. Right. And I didn't have that idea or that mindset, for a while until, I was 35 years old, not that long ago, dude.
Yeah.
I kind of, like I said, I kind of fumbled around for a while. So,
Well, and one kid's a full-time job.
right.
You have 7, and if it wasn't you and Danny as a married couple parenting these kids, either one of you by yourselves would be less efficient, probably.
Well, yes, totally. And I think we are yin and yang, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like she does so much of the mother part,
Right.
like awesome, perfect. You know what I mean? Like just amazingly. And I feel like I do well now at being a good role model as a father. You know what I mean? But that's us growing through life, right? We didn't know that at the time. Like Danny was not who she was when we started dating and got married. You know what I mean? Like like you talked about like knowing at 18, knowing everything, right? And I have definitely come to realize that life is lesson after lesson learning. And if you're not apt to look for that and see it and see the lessons and take the good from the bad and all that, like, you're missing out. You know what I mean? Like you're totally missing out. And I think I'm also thankful for living the life that I lived almost, right? Like it's given me the experience. And I think, people always say like, there's a lot of folks that say, oh, you need to come to God, right? You need to, be a Christian and all that kind of thing. And I kind of push back on that sometimes, not because I don't think it's important, but I also think like it is up to God when that happens, right? And like he's using your life experiences, the stuff that you've gone through. Like I probably, had I never gone through and done some of the stuff that I did, I couldn't be the person and the role model that I am in the way that I am, right? Like, and so there's almost some good in that, he's using those experiences, the times that I went to jail and, all the different things that I did to help teach people, I
mean, he redeems us,
right?
And so like Steck said, you raise your kids in the admonition of the Lord, and then that way they'll come back to that later, so it's this idea that we'll all stray and run away, in our young life. So
but there's always the shepherd that's pursuing us.
Right, 100%.
I think that's one thing. God can have a million conversations with anybody if they'll just turn and have that conversation with him and be willing to see him in that moment. But also, like, you have to figure out those lessons. You wouldn't be the same person if you hadn't figured out those lessons.
I had to learn them like 5 times in a row. Or 20 times.
Beating your head against the wall. You know what I mean?
Same.
Yeah. So for me, like now living life, and I will totally fumble what the verse is that we talk about a lot in Freedom Weekend, but the weaker I get, the stronger I become, right? That resonates with me so much now, because when I go through trials and tribulations now, I'm like, this is me getting better. Like, this is me getting stronger.
I'm going to come out on the other.
Like, this is actually awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
When I was running from God and things were hard, I thought, well, I'm going to have to figure this out. Now when things seem hard, I go, well, okay, God, I'm going to tag you in on this deal, because I don't know what to do.
Right.
And then I have peace around it. And, my wife's like, how are you so comfortable? Things are crazy. I'm like, God's got this, because this is outside of my wheelhouse.
Right.
Like I'm done worrying about it.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is really tough for non-believers to like
really hard.
Wrap their head around. But it's real. It is really real. Like if I pray and I go, okay, God, I'm done trying to mess this up. Like I admit that I need your help. I get in binds less often now, because I'm quicker and quicker every time things get tough. Like the toughness level of me going, okay, God, you figure it out. It happens earlier.
Right.
And so maybe I'm working towards just, okay, look, I wake up in the morning, I go, hey, God, thanks for another day. Like, hang out with me today. I'm going to work.
Yeah.
Be with my wife. Like I say a couple of things, and I just talk to God like I'm talking to y'all.
Yeah.
But I grew up with like the big fancy prayers, and at dinner, at birthdays.
It's like, how many names can you remember when you're
it was like
pray
preaching.
For this person?
I feel like there's probably a family member or two that wanted to go, and everybody said amen. Because it was just still going on.
It's competition who's longer.
But I mean, I love listening to that stuff, because it's wild. The people that can like really like pray, like the awesome prayers, dude. I mean, Travis and Brittany prayed with us when we went up for communion, and I think it was pretty powerful, because he gave a disclaimer before we got up, and he's like, if you don't believe, if you're not saved or whatever, this isn't for you. And then Michelle's like, well, I can't go. I'm like, no, you're coming with us. I mean, you don't have to eat the bread and drink the grape juice, but you're coming with us. And he prayed for us, and I think everybody was crying when we got done. I think it matters less what we do, and it matters more that we do it.
Exactly. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I went to the cow camp. I went up there too. You know what I mean? And I had no idea what to experience. I'd never been to church camp growing up.
It was high level though.
Oh, it was amazing.
We're going to both of them this year.
Yeah,
I'm so excited.
It was awesome, and I regret not going this past year. All the kids from youth group were like, "Dude, why didn't you go? It was awesome."
You'll be there next year, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Michelle and I are going too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to both of them.
Yeah, and it was fantastic. But like, I had no idea what to expect, but it was just like having the faith that whatever happens, and I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was unreal, but like, it's hard. I think as much as I like contradict myself and say that I can't pray with people on Sunday during communion because I don't know what to say, like, the one thing I have been able to do is just tell myself, like, the more you put yourself in those positions, God is going to show you what he wants for you. Right? Like, I don't have it figured out. And, I've had friends that I've invited to church here that have come, that have gone, that have fallen by the wayside, whatever you want to call it, and for whatever reasons, right? But I know for me, as much as I may not pray as much as I need to at home, I know for me, like, as long as I show up, I know that I'm supposed to, I'll get something, you know what I mean? And so that's why I try to at least commit to being, in these environments as much as possible.
The ministry of presence is strong, but I think we're called to be the priests of our home as men.
Yeah.
That means
actions,
doing, that's the doing of things.
Right.
It's not the thinking of things.
And I'm not, and that's the thing too. Like, I've always kind of, actions are louder than words, man. You know what I mean? And as much as you could try to say the right things, you could say the most perfect prayer out there, right? But if you're not living it, or not even living it completely, but like showing up, you know what I mean? And if you're hiding from being in those places, is it as good? I don't personally think so.
And then I think intentions matter too.
Right.
Yeah. So that's one of the things about being a man is, like, I can't know Tyler's heart or Pat's heart, but God does.
Right. And and that's what I love about this church, man. Like, I think we've got a lot of guys that don't have it all figured out, that didn't grow up, that aren't squeaky clean. But we got a lot of dudes that are committed to just showing up.
Yeah.
And they're authentic.
Right.
And they're honest, and they're raw.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm instantly suspicious of a new man that I don't know.
Right.
But if he comes in, if he goes to a Freedom Weekend, if I get to talk to him a little bit, and if I can tell that he's real.
I was suspicious of all of you. You know what I mean? Like, don't. We can't act like we weren't all suspicious of each other, right? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I quit being suspicious of you after the Tyson. That's how long I held on to it. But, like, because you knew who Mike Jones was, it was like, he's
right.
cool.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, we have to live life with each other to figure that out. We're not going to figure it out. And if you're not putting yourself in those positions, and if you're coming on Sunday and you're not getting to know people, you're making your opinions, just like I did when I was showing up one Sunday and making my opinion, right? And that's not fair. And there's a lot of guys, I could name off a ton of dudes that go to church here that when I first met them, I was like, I'm not sure. And now I'm like, I'd call them one of my best friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're totally not like me.
Yeah.
But I'm like, man, I need that guy. Yeah. I need that dude's perspective. I need that guy in my life to help me walk through life,
On the flip side of that, like, the hippies and the burnouts when I was in high school that I hung out with, and, if you're hearing this, no offense, you know what I mean? I was there with you.
Yeah.
But, like, they didn't have, like, a application or, like, a criteria that you had to meet. If you were down to drink some beers and smoke some weed with them,
yeah,
like, that was it. I never put any of them to the stringent test that I've done with different people at church.
Right, yeah.
Which is, it's just crazy.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I didn't really, like, investigate too much. I'm like, you're down to party, I'm down to party.
Yeah, you go on a road trip with a dude to a music concert
sure.
with, like, $2 in your pocket.
Yeah.
And not have a clue how you're going to get
I went
home.
to a party on a Thursday, like my junior year,
right.
and woke up in Shreveport, Louisiana on Monday.
Yeah.
Had no idea how I got there.
Yeah.
This girl came out of the bathroom. "What's up, friend?" I'm like, I don't know who you are. You know?
And you would totally ride like that.
Didn't think that was wild.
But then you show, I totally get that.
Yeah. So, but what's interesting is, as I've gotten closer with this group of believers. You know, like we were at your house the other day. People were partying, having a good time. Not too different from the way things were when I was in high school.
Yeah.
But it was a totally different experience.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like I got to bring my brother and his girlfriend out, which was cool. You know, like our relationships have been going through some things for the last couple of years. And he was like, man, I really like Tyler, man. His house is cool. He's like, I want to buy some land. You know? He's like, I want to burn a fire sometimes.
Right.
You know?
Inspiration.
Oh, that's
You know,
good,
but
man.
like I tried to get him to come to church, and I have this weird suspicion that every time I try to invite somebody to church, something weird's going on that day.
Right.
Like one time I invited somebody and they came, and it was like maybe you and two other dudes just kind of talking, almost interview form, you know, kind of telling a little bit of your story.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's kind of a weird, you know,
Right.
like it was kind of a weird day.
Those guys sucked.
Yeah, every time I invite somebody to any church, it's always
Yeah.
just like a little weird.
Totally.
But like I invited him, and then Michelle's like, it's communion, which I guess looking back, she was probably like figuring out, she was probably nervous about how it was going to be,
Right.
you know, because we did communion one time at Cross Brand, and she was like, you know. He wouldn't go because I think he thought his girlfriend would be uncomfortable. But like they came to your house, and he was like, all those people were really cool. And I was like, that's what I've been trying to tell you, dude. Like it's not some weird, it's not like a cult. We're not going to try to get you to do some weird stuff.
I mean, we are drinking Kool-Aid this Sunday, but, you know, whatever.
No, we already did. It wasn't Kool-Aid, dude.
Red
That
I
was-
wasn't there. I'm sorry. I was.
Yeah, I'm sure that it was
Sparkling
like,
grape
you know,
juice.
sparkling grape juice, you know. Because, like, we like to party at Wilderness, you know. Like, we
Yeah.
couldn't just have still grape juice. It had to have some fizzle in it,
Right.
you know.
To it.
But like, a fun group of people, man. Like, Brittany's 40th birthday was
Yeah.
wild, you know. And I think that those things glorify God, too. You know, like, Steck said something that really resonated. He's like, I didn't get sober to, like, be a boring, you
Yeah.
know, or I don't know what he said.
I
don't
get
know how he
sober
said
to
it.
suck.
Yeah, I didn't get sober to
awesome.
have things suck. Like, I don't come to church to have, like, a boring, weird life. I don't want to go to, like, endless pancake breakfasts and talk about my struggle with porn or whatever,
Right,
you
yeah,
know? Like,
yeah.
that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I know that I need Jesus. And I desperately know, I painfully am aware of how bad my wife and kids need this too.
Yeah.
And I have seen absolute bountiful fruit from our involvement with this body of believers.
Yeah.
I can't deny it. And my wife, as she's figuring out what, you know, where she lands on the whole God deal, I've asked her, like, hey, you know, like, you know, you kind of fought me on the church thing at first, but once we started coming to Wilderness, it was by then for sure she wasn't fighting it. And she's like, well, I can see the growth and benefit in Sebastian, and I can see the growth and benefit in Lexi.
Yeah.
So she can see the evidence of it. What I've gotten to see with my wife, and I think is interesting, I'd like to hear your talk, because I didn't really know that you were kind of like, and then you figured your
Yeah.
life out too, you know? But
Yeah.
is my wife is actively looking for reasons to believe.
Yeah.
Most people I know that are like, I don't know if God exists, they're like reading Dawkins, they're reading atheist writing, they're like actively looking for ways to disprove God's existence.
Right.
But I'm getting to watch my wife actively, like she finished the book of Luke this month, you know, it's big stuff. We watch a new episode every time we get a chance of The Chosen. You know, it's been a fun thing to watch with her. I've never watched somebody come to faith, you know, so it
Right.
might be interesting to let your wife have a rebuttal, because,
Yeah.
you know, I'd love to hear her position on it,
Definitely
you know,
probably has a
because
whole
she was
different
raised
spin.
in the admonition of the Lord, and then she
Right.
came back. Mm-hmm. But she came back with you. She
Yeah,
was like,
she
come
brought
with me,
you,
you know, she
Yeah,
brought
look
you
at this
with.
guy I found.
And so, so I have that maybe in common with her, you know.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, you know. I think if you seek God, He doesn't make too hard of terms with you. I think He's chasing you down anyway.
Right.
You know, He's like, "Oh, I'm here." You know,
doesn't
you're like,
stop.
"Where are you?
Right.
Where are you?" And He's
Yeah.
like, "Here I am." You know,
Yeah.
that's a wild thing to watch.
Yeah.
You know, and then just to get to see the kids. You know, I mean, like Sebastian loves y'all. You know,
Yeah.
like
I love that dude.
I mean, he came here the first time he came. He told y'all his name was Bobby or
Oh,
Bob
dude,
or
he's
something.
still Bobby. I still
Hey,
call him
Bobby.
Bobby.
And now they call him Bobby. It's
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu and like some. They're like Bobby, you know, and And then at school, like some girls that he goes to school with, I guess, came here and found out that his name was Bobby, so now they're calling him Bobby at school.
Dude,
and like
so
Travis
funny.
is all about nicknames. I'm like, I guess somehow Bobby picked his own nickname.
Yeah.
He didn't know it, but he's
Right.
going to be Bobby forever now.
Right.
Yeah.
He's so Bobby that Turtle thought that Bobby was short for Sebastian. He told
Sebastian.
Travis that. So,
man.
you know, it's been so cool to have my family get to experience y'all's ministry of presence up here,
Yeah.
you know, and I mean, I can't be more grateful. It's just all these things. It's just a masterful example of God's providence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, dude, we all are aware of the demonic spirit, of the devil, of all the bad things that are happening in the world. But like, this is a safe place for me. I can fall asleep here, you know?
Yeah.
Right? I don't, you know, if I'm in a dangerous place, I'm not going to sleep. When I go to a restaurant with my wife, she knows that I have to see the door.
Yeah. Right.
You know?
Yeah. I'm the same way.
But like, if I come here, dude, if I fell asleep, I wouldn't worry not once about my wife or kids being
Somebody
in this
might
room.
draw on your face. We still got that party life for this.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. You might wake up with like, you know,
No
Post
shoes.
Malone tattoos. We're recording with, you know, half Malone.
Right. Yeah.
Almost Malone.
Oh my god.
So, is there anything like, dude, I know you've got some wild stuff. I don't know. I don't want to like make you tell crazy stories, but like, you have any good stories? You have any wild things you want to like put out there for the whole universe to hear?
I've got 8 to 10 years solid of wild stuff. You know what I mean? But I will let me go back to one of the points you were talking about though. So like in my walk, and you know, like I said, I may not always know the right things to say, you know, because I don't think I'm there yet. Right? Like it probably will come one day. I feel like I'll be more comfortable in the things that I say when I pray with people and all that. But I know that if I keep showing up, God's going to do his thing, right? Like if I keep running from it, which I think is what I've done, I did for so long, it's hard to see the benefits, you know? But like, you know, you were talking about one of the Sundays, maybe I was speaking or something like that. And it was just similarly to this, sharing my life and story, right? And I never pushed on my kids, you have to be baptized, right? Like, you need to be baptized. And we sit down every Sunday and go over the sermon and how are you feeling and how close are you to becoming a Christian and, you know, all of that, right? Like, I never did that because I didn't know what to say. And I didn't want my kids to feel like it was all me pushing it, right? Yeah. Like, I feel like everybody's journey is different. Like I said, you come to God whenever that happens according to his plan, and by his own hand, all of my teenage kids made that decision completely on their own, right? Like, I may have had one or two mentions of like, hey, yeah, you know, one day you can get baptized, right? Like that's probably the extent of it, right? Yeah. It was never like, you know, how, you know, next year, or
next month,
next month, or like, how are you feeling, man? You know, it wasn't that, right? Like, it was just like, hey, as long as I keep putting my kids in this position, you know, and showing them and being that example, it'll happen when it happens, you know, and by the grace of God, it has, right? Yeah. And so like, I think that's the biggest thing for me. That's how I live my life, is like showing up, man. Like just showing up. If you don't know what to say, just show up. You know,
sometimes you don't have to say anything.
You don't have to say anything. You know what I mean? And odds are, if you're waiting for someone to say the right things, you know, you're probably gonna wait for a while, right? Mm-hmm. You know, and there people are going to let you down too. You know what I mean? Like 100%. people are going to let you down. Like, you know, there's a lot of times when you hear people getting, church hurt. Yeah. Right. You know, and, you know, I didn't come, like, I appreciate and I love the fellowship and the relationships that I have here. Right. But like, I know that you're not perfect and you're not perfect and I'm not perfect and I'm certainly going to offend you or do things that you're not going to like and vice versa, but that's not why we're here. You know what I mean? Like, I love it and that's part of the benefit of it, but that's not the reason we're here, right? If you came to church for relationships with other people solely, right, then you're going to be let down. You know what I mean? And so I try not to lose sight of that either, because we're all imperfect. We're all going to screw up. And to think like you're going to, show up to a church and no one is ever going to irritate you or do or say something that's something that you like all the time is like completely irrational because you don't do that. I didn't do that. I totally lived a life of just complete sin and lack of remorse, you know what I mean? And just, so sorry, that was like my little spiel there, but
I think that's the importance of being a faithful steward.
Yeah.
Whenever you look at like the patriarchs of the Bible, they were just showing up. They were just pursuing God in whatever way that God has revealed himself.
Right.
And whenever we see Jesus being unfolded in the Gospels and you see like the time that he showed up, like to say that the people of the Old Testament weren't seeing Jesus in some type of way in that time, and just like we today see Jesus somewhere, somehow, if you just look for him. Like, that's the most important thing. A lot of people want to sit there and say that, I don't go to church and that, the church has never really done anything good for me, or even believers who have rejected the church and they limit their relationship to a podcast or to a sermon online or something like that. Like, you're really doing yourself a disservice whenever you limit the people of God to a phone screen.
Yeah.
I think experiences, we always talk about this, experiences are the most important things for us to be living life together. And, we live in 2024 where everything's on your phone screen and, there's no real reason to actually show up.
Yeah.
But we see the fruit of you just showing it. You and Danny both just showing up. I mean, I got to go to Oklahoma with Danny and that big ass van that y'all got with all them kids, and I had an absolute blast getting to know them up there and getting to know Danny more. And now that I've heard kind of your story, the way that you and Danny were, like, it makes so much more sense because like she got to see you grow in that faith, and that's why she's so hardcore about let's get these kids to church, because she lived that out with you. And I think that's something that's really beautiful, and it stands a huge testimony for Danny, because like I've seen her like have conversations with kids, like difficult conversations with kids. And so it's a breath of fresh air, like anytime you guys walk in. So I'm always excited to see y'all.
I appreciate that, man. That's like I said, I didn't have a whole lot of that, growing up in my life, for years and years, and just kind of fumbled around. And I feel like there's a huge purpose now in my life, and so it's just I may not always have it figured out, and God could take all of the things that He's given me away tomorrow. You know what I mean? But as long as I stay focused and just saying, "Yep, well, I'll show up wherever you want me to tomorrow." You know what I mean? Like, and kind of going back to one of the other points that you were mentioning about like living things out with each other. I think that's the other thing. Like, we can't. A lot of people have been hurt by other people in our lives, right? Like, we've all been screwed over in one way or the other from the actions of people. But I do think that this church overall, like we want to see each other grow, right? Like we want to be raw and real with each other so that we feel comfortable when we're going through that ourselves, right? Like I had a conversation with a guy here that's a little bit older than us, and he didn't always understand maybe some of the things that we're doing, right? Like the check-ins and the freedom weekends and stuff like that. Like, it was all kind of about salvation, and he was like, I don't really get it. Like we need to save more people, kind of thing, right? And I was like, man, that's not what I think it's all about for me. And maybe that's where you are in your walk, right? Like that's what you feel your calling is, right? But for me, like I need to be around guys who have gone through trials and tribulations in their marriage, right? Or problems with substance abuse or whatever it is, right? Like I need to be around guys like that so that if I'm going through that, I have someone to walk through that with me, right? And I don't need to fall back in isolation and be like, well, I'm having a hard time staying sober right now.
My cross to bear.
Right. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I would much rather show up here on Wednesday and be like, yeah, dude, I've been drinking for 5 days straight. You know what I mean? And then have people be like, yeah, I've done that before too, man. Like this is how I kind of got through that. You know what I mean? And like, yeah, it sucks. And you're being an idiot.
Yeah.
But also like I've done it.
Yeah. Or worst case, well, this is what I did and it was a terrible idea.
Right.
So maybe don't do that.
Right. Exactly.
Some bumpers for the bowling ball is nice every now and then.
Yeah, man. And that is one of the huge benefits that I have in being here and being with you guys and everything, man. Like we don't have it figured out. And if you think that you do, I don't believe you. You know what I mean? Like if somebody shows up and they think they've got it all figured out, like that's not the guy that I'm going to really hang around.
And usually those people leave pretty quick.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
If I miss a Sunday and a Wednesday in the same week, it's usually not a great week.
Oh, dude, yeah, my life.
The only time that happens
derailed.
is if I'm out of town or something.
Yeah, even on vacation, like we usually hit about a 2-week vacation in the summertime, and we're not usually going to church during that time. And those we come back, we're like, we need to get home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
this summer we took 2 big trips.
Yeah.
And it was good.
Yeah.
But when we were in Virginia, Michelle's aunt and uncle were like, our son and his girlfriend, they've been going to this one church down here by their house. Do y'all want to go to church on Sunday? And I was like, no, you don't understand. Like, it's not that we just need to go to a church. Yeah. It's that we go to our church.
Right.
Because I have that connection. And, I don't know, looking back, maybe I should have gone. It might have been a weird, I always like new experiences. I'm down for it.
Or something like that.
But we listened to one of Travis's older sermons and then watched some of the cross-brand worship or whatever on Facebook, and I just pulled it up on the phone and made them listen to it too, we can just do that here.
Yeah.
So I think the community and having shared experience is where some of the magic happens. God talks to me most of the time through humans, another person. Yeah. So Wednesday mornings are huge. Just that little check-in. Even if I just listen to people tell stories about all the ducks they killed.
Yep.
Having an opportunity to be in front of another man or a group of men that actually care about me, that actually know me, that can be a mirror for me. Because sometimes I don't, like the inmates in prison know more about what the prison guard did all day than the prison guard.
Yeah.
Because they watched him.
Right.
Yeah. So if I'm getting out of line, one of you guys is going to grab me and go, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, we're not meant to isolate ourselves and to hide everything. Like, obviously, that's totally counterproductive. And the opposite of what we should and what God calls us to do.
I think
right?
that was taught to the boomers
right.
by the greatest generation.
Right.
So the people that fought World War II, they were like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, figure your life out. I started a movie with Lexi this afternoon and then ended up having to do work stuff. And I was talking to the wife about things. She's at work and we're busy right now, wrapping up the end of the year. But Lexi and I had started the movie, I'm going to get this wrong, The Stand. And it's about Phil Robertson and his story, you know, the Duck Dynasty people. You know, the beard guy.
Yeah.
It's about, and like half of the movie is like him actually shooting real ducks in a duck blind. It's hilarious. It's a great, The Blind. Did I say The Stand?
Yeah, the duck stand.
The duck
deer
stand.
stand.
Whatever.
The duck blind.
The duck blind.
The blind.
And so we got like
Sweet
15 minutes into it, but like we're going to have to, I told Lexi, look, we're going to have to start this over with Michelle because I think it's going to be slick. But I think the ministry that he and his family have moved forward with, because I've seen some of that. I haven't watched this whole movie, which is his biopic or whatever, but the universe that created him was pull yourself up by your bootstraps, don't tell your neighbors, you can do this on your own. But from the previews and from the little clips that I've seen already, the 10, 15 minutes I'm in, it looks like what they found out was, hey, you know, pain shared is pain divided, joy shared is joy multiplied. And if you get in here and you start getting around a body of believers and start seeking God's guidance and salvation for your life and for your family's life, God will multiply that and He'll bless you, you know? So...
Oh, that movie actually...
So you've seen it.
Oh, yeah. Which is ironic that you brought it up because the weekend that I shared my testimony here, the day or two before that, we watched that movie. And there's a lot of parallels, and I'm not saying I'm Phil Robertson by any means, because he is a fantastic guy. But... his history, and I don't want to give it all away, but there's a lot of parallels to a lot of things that I did, maybe what you've done, you know what I mean? Like the things that we've experienced in our life, and like to see his example of that, and then the fruit that has come from him in finding Christ is just amazing.
Yeah, my daughter was like, I think his granddaughter like preaches and stuff. I'm like, yeah, I follow her. She's great.
Have you heard him preach?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dude. I heard him at Testing of the Bulls several years ago.
Yeah.
And freaking, they couldn't even publish it. The stuff that he was talking about, like towards men and stuff like that, dude.
Right.
Hits you square in the chest.
Man. Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah. And I think, you know, a lot of men hide from that. We, you know, if you allow it, the devil will work in your life. That's what... That is I mentioned it at the beginning of this, and I think there's a huge attack on men and what we think is the stigma of how we are supposed to be. Like the guy that made the Facebook post, or the post, I don't know if it was on whatever it was on.
Yeah, it was like a blog.
Yeah, the blog the other day about coming here on communion, right? And the what did he say about like
community,
the community bit, like the danger, the danger in your eyes, right? Like there's some great things to having guys that are willing, that are dangerous but controlled, right? Like, you know, the warrior in the garden.
There's a Jordan
Peterson kind of
Peterson
stuff, right? Like the warrior in the garden stuff, right? Like we need men that are dangerous, right, in that aspect, but are also willing to be vulnerable and to share and not isolate themselves, man. Like the isolation is, you know, we've all probably seen it and seen guys walk through here.
Bro, that's my biggest struggle.
You know what I mean? And experience that and all that, and it's like you see it, and you're like, dude, I know what you need, bro. Like I know what will help you.
And I've tried to reach out to guys that I can see that they're there, but you just can't hardly invite them to enough things or get them out. They just won't do it. But if they call me, then you can.
Right.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Like if they reach out and they're like, hey, man, I don't really know what to do about this. I'm struggling with it. Oh, yeah, we can fix that.
Right.
What we can't fix, I mean, I guess I've seen a couple guys that were like, struggling, but they were willing to talk about it.
Yeah.
Most guys, when you reach out, oh no, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good.
You really have to establish.
I'm good.
Yeah, you have to establish that relationship in the beginning.
Right.
You know, that's the only way that you're going to even get to where you're able to say, "Hey, dude, ain't seen you in a while. Like, are you okay? Like,
Right.
is everything?
And I'm going to respond to that guy the first time probably the same way, right? Because I don't know him.
Yeah.
You know, he hasn't been here for me to be like, well, man, you know what? This weekend sucked. My wife, or my kids, or, money is
My
tight,
job,
or whatever it is that's going on. Like, I'm not going to do that to some guy that I've never met and experienced life with, But, I feel like we see way too many men in this world right now that are just isolating themselves. Their example, or their idea of the alternative to that, like not the isolation, is like going to the bar, right, or watching Sunday football, or
I'm not isolated. I'm with the boys.
my coworker. You know what I mean? Like,
But it's all news and weather.
exactly, exactly.
It's not real stuff.
It's not.
And dude, I'm so grateful to have y'all two for sure, and some of the other guys in this church, dude. It's an invaluable resource that I've got. Because I know, for sure, I've sat in some check-ins with Tyler and watched him cry about other people's suffering.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I know that I could call either one of you guys, and y'all would be there.
Right.
Not if I was changing brakes.
I knew it was coming to
I
that.
definitely called Pat. I was like, bro, I don't know. This caliper's not really compressing. I don't know. And he was like, yeah, I'm going out tonight, and I got a wedding tomorrow. I got to go.
It's a funeral.
Hey, and you know what happened? My wife came home, and she goes, I think you probably should compress the caliper a little bit more. I'm like, no, it's all the way in. And it turned a quarter turn, and everything went together.
Everything popped together.
Yeah. So,
Blessing for her.
Nice.
but yeah, dude, like what we have is super special. And I think, what helps is we have Freedom Weekend, but that's just 24 hours. I was talking to Travis the other day. I think it takes 2 years to develop a friendship.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like if you have a wife and kids and a job, if dude, when you're 16, you can become best friends in 2 weeks because you just go to school and then you just hang
You
out
have
with
nothing
them.
to worry about.
Yeah, you have all the time in the world. One day my dad came home from work and he was like, what are you doing tonight? And I was like, I'm going to go hang out with my girlfriend. He's like, you spend more time with your girlfriend than I spend with your mother.
Yeah.
And I was like, what a dick. But like hindsight, he wasn't wrong.
Right.
Now, I don't know that if they spent that much time together, they would be happy about it at that time in their lives, because I was really creating a lot of conflict in them, But yeah, dude.
Yeah, the 2 years mark, like that was a big one for me. I started at Wilderness in October of 2022, and just being available to jump in and be willing to make those steps forward and be like, hey, this is what I want. Like, I have no doubt that this is the community that I want to be involved with, because like right now, the people that are in my life between work and church and everything, 99% of those relationships were developed in the last 2 years. I don't hardly keep up with anybody
Yeah, man.
that I kept up with like 10, 5, 20 years ago.
Right.
Like it's crazy whenever you actually just start putting forward motion and set your mind to, this is what I want for my life.
Right.
And you've got a lot going on. You've got some real stuff going on that's tough. Like I look at what I have now, and if I read about like Lot's story, I'm like, oh, God, don't test me like that. I don't, like I'm gonna be honest, dude. I wake up every day and I know beyond a shadow of the doubt that I was blessed, that God picked my wife, that my kids are perfect. I mean, I don't have. Sometimes I come to check in and hear people talk about the struggles in their house, and I'm like, I guess I better shut up,
Right.
Because I love what I've got. I've had worse.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
I've had something so bad
Yeah.
but I still didn't want to let that go. And I'm like, dude, I don't want God to take any of this from me. I am beyond grateful.
Right.
I certainly didn't earn it. I don't deserve it. I've done bad.
Yeah.
And I think that's powerful, to sit in a room full of other guys that are like, hey, things are kind of tough, but I love my wife. I love my kids,
Right.
I mean, that's wild. You know, like Stack last week was like, hey, you know, the way you do tough love is you love your kids even when it's tough. I'm like, wow, you know.
Yeah.
There it is. You know, that's the solution. That is what God told us to do. Which brings me back to love and respect. You and Danny should absolutely go, and it's the weekend of Valentine's Day, Friday night and Saturday day. I think, I don't know. But, you know, women are born naturally loving things. Yeah. It's easy for them to love. And men are born understanding and being able to respect things and respect each other. But God commanded us to love our wives and commanded our wives to respect us.
Right.
And, you know, I got to witness some things over Christmas, you know, family visits, and you get to see some things, and you learn in the love and respect class what happens when the fight is not about what the fight is about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, like it's not about who took the trash out. It's not about what you ate for dinner. It's not about what you just said in the car on the way to church. It's about something else. Yeah. You know? And, man, anyway, I'm done talking about love and respect.
Well, to that point, like to anything, right? Like that event, like, I'd be foolish to say that I think my relationship with my wife or my kids or with anything would be as good tomorrow as it would be a year from now if I put the same amount of effort in, right? Like if I continue to do the same things for the next 20 years, I'm going to be in the same position with my wife, or probably behind and in a worse position if I don't continue to try to go to things like that, right?
Right.
Or, you know, once or twice a year, or get different perspectives, listen to different stuff, you know what I mean? Put myself into uncomfortable positions because I don't have it figured out. And that's one of the things that we have talked about today is we don't know it all. We know we don't know it all. And if we don't continue to seek God and to seek, you know, relationships and fellowships from other perspectives, we're just going to continue to fumble over ourselves and our life because we're not improving. We're not, you know, growing, right? And like I said, for a long time, I did not have that mindset. And I think a lot of us don't, right? Like as late teenage, early 20s guys, like
my teenage ran into my early 30s.
Right, yeah, 20-year-olds, you know, all the way to 30s. Like, you know, for me, and there's a lot of guys out there that don't have that were, you know, were very goal-oriented and had that mindset. But for me, I didn't, you know, and I thought life was what it was, and you just kind of ran through it, and your relationships were where they were, and all that. And I don't believe that anymore, right? Like, you've got to put yourself in growth-oriented positions, new perspectives, marriage, you know, relationship building type environments to see what's out there, man, because there's a whole bountiful life that you don't know about, man. There's a whole lot of stuff out there.
I'd rather be green and growing than ripe and dying.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to put it, man.
And I loved what Steck said. You know, he was like, there's a lot of people my age and they start thinking about retirement and stuff. He's like, where are they? They should be here in the church, showing your younger generation.
Yeah.
Like, this is the next thing you do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and you're gonna have ups and downs and lulls and times when you're not, you know, on fire and all that, and I think that's fine, but like, don't stay there.
Right. Well, there's a lot of families in this church right now that were huge parts of different parts of this church operation.
Right.
That have like new babies. Dude, they're busy. They have things they've got to do right now. You know, there's seasons, but life's about the journey, not the destination, you know? Like, so the goal-minded people that are secular, that don't believe, you know, the problem is they think, well, if I get this promotion, then it'll be... I remember the first job I got, I thought, well, if I could ever make $20 an hour, I'd be rich.
Bro,
right.
Yeah.
You know? Because it was a destination mindset, you know? So I'm like, hey, I'm with you, growth mindset, but like, I just want to keep growing. I never think I'm going to be
There's
done.
no end. There's no end.
Yeah.
If you think there's an end and you stop, you die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You fall apart. Like, your relationships fall apart. Your body falls apart. You know, whatever it is, it's going to fall apart. So,
man.
Well, this has been a wonderful episode.
Yeah.
Dude, this is awesome. This has been Two Dudes, One Podcast. God podcast. Dang it, I'm never gonna get it right. I swear.
Two Dudes, One God podcast.
Thank you.
Next week, we have Troy Coleman.
Oh, that's gonna be.
Troy Coleman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Troy, yeah.
Troy is solid.
Yeah, Troy's a great
dude. So super excited about that. Hey, y'all have a good week. We'll see you next week.